Today I am talking about healing yourself after trauma, how to be seen, be heard, and be limitless. And I will keep myself on track by looking at my notes. So um, please excuse me looking down, but I am so excited that you're here and really showing up for yourself because I think that we all get into a place of stuckness and really compromise ourselves for fear. And so let me just start out with a couple of questions. And you all can answer as well. Everybody here can answer. Have you ever wondered why some women have a hard time breaking free from toxic relationships?
Absolutely.
I'm going to say fear,
Mm-hmm.
that comfort zone.
Yeah, I know that was true for me.
Afraid
Definitely.
of what other people are going to say.
Mm-hmm. Angela and Tina?
Well, Angela, I was just saying definitely true. I've been in a marriage for 28 years only to take care of my children, 3 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't leave because of that.
Yeah. And Tina, thank you.
I think having that notion, like if you change partners, you could be like damaged goods, right? So having that lack of self-esteem to move forward and being confident in myself that I'm worthy of more.
Yeah. Thank you so much for mentioning that.
Very insightful. I love that.
Yeah. And also talking about being in that relationship and also being codependent, which I didn't even know what that was. And here I am. I have a psychology minor. I've never heard of that word before. And I've never heard of narcissism before either. And so what I did was I pretty much I knew that there was a certain pattern. So to give you some background, I was in a 20-year relationship or marriage with a narcissist. And so I've experienced physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial abuse. And I too thought I was crazy because they like to do that and put the blame on me. And I did not grow up this way. I did not have the background of being in any type of abuse whatsoever. And so going into this relationship, I didn't really understand how I even got into it. And I also felt like I could be a martyr, that I could actually save this person because I felt like I had such a great childhood and a great upbringing. I'm like, just blame it on me. Just, like, I will take your burden. I will take the pain. I will help you. I will fix, not necessarily fix you, but I will be that person for you to believe in you and love you and help you. And because I have done that for myself, I thought that anyone could do it. And so that's how I got into the relationship because I actually thought that he would change. And so I'm here to tell you that sometimes stuff's not our stuff. And so together for today, you will discover actionable steps to increase your self-awareness and your self-forgiveness so that you can reparent your inner child and embrace your new journey ahead toward a more fulfilling whole life. So I love that I can really resonate with what everybody said today. And it's a perfect segue into the emotional part of what stress can give us. And I love what Sherry had said about choose your heart because I was in like deep into fear. And I did see that movie, Sleeping with the Enemy, where the psycho guy, you're all nodding your head, the psycho guy was after the one who got away. and he found her. And so I was terrified that he would find me. So that's why I'm here to tell you, healing after trauma, or if you are in trauma, don't keep silent. For 20 years, I kept silent. So during this training, you will learn the 3 steps and tools to become aware, release forgiveness, and empower yourself so that you can really begin a healing journey after trauma. And as Sherry had mentioned, and everybody knows this already, but if you don't know, the mantra that I have is be seen, be heard, and be limitless. And I developed this, I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years after divorce when I realized I was silencing myself. And so then I said, oh my gosh, I'm silencing myself. I have been away from this relationship for so long. And here I am, I'm hiding and I'm silencing myself and I'm holding myself back with all of my self limiting beliefs that we have talked about today. So the first one that I'll talk about is being seen. So acknowledge your feelings. The second is being heard. Let go and break patterns. And being limitless is discovering what you want and going for it. So instead of playing small, which we as women tend to do, or even if men are here, we put pressure on ourselves to be perfect or we fall into fear. Either perfect or fear, we're going to get paralyzed. And that's where I fell into. And I'm not from the camp of I'm not good enough, but I'm from the camp of I don't matter. So overcoming all of that is this is how it happened. So on August 8th, 2014, I remember I was sitting there at my desk and he was wanting me to open up a Excel file on our computer, which didn't have updates. So I was explaining that there are different versions of Excel and he was starting to get really angry at me. And so eventually it turned into a physical thing. And I said to myself, this was after probably about 17 years. Well, no, actually, no, it was like about 19 years into the marriage. I said, you know what? I said, this is it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I said this to myself. I said, if it ever happens again, I'm gone. I'm done. I'm just so done with this. And it happened again. Happened again on 8/8/2015. So you can hear about all the details in the book. So I encourage you to read the book and read all of our chapters so you can get to know us more. There's something in all of us that we got to a point where our breakdown was our breakthrough. And in that moment of being attacked, and I would say probably it was the longest and the worst, is that I felt love because I had prayed all of these years for God's help. I felt love in that moment that I really should have felt fear, right? Or what we have experienced is fear. And I felt love. So I felt protection from love. And as I was being attacked, I was just overcome with love. So I was completely clear in my mind, clear in my body, and I was able to finally stop the attack and get him out of the house. And in that process, I I was well, actually after that after that event, I was so terrified. I was bruised and everything. I was so terrified, and I'm sitting on the terracotta floor, just crying. Well, actually, felt like crying, but nothing would come out because I was just so overcome with emotion. And I wanted to run. Isn't that what we do? Like that fight, flight, fright, or freeze. And what I've also learned is please and appease. We fall into that. When we fall into fear or perfection, either one, we get paralyzed. We want to run. We don't want to deal with it. We just want to get it over with. And so I stopped myself and I said, you don't need to run anywhere. That's when I really felt like I stepped into my power. I said, you don't need to run anywhere. You are going to stay here. You don't need to put a timeline on anything. You are in your queendom. You protect yourself and you stay steady in your queendom. And so I finally had the courage to act because I honored myself and I stood up for myself. So if you're brave to say it's over, whatever you're in, or whatever plagues you, or whatever you are compromising yourself with and not honoring yourself through fear, know what your next step is because it's always the next step because you can just keep going in that cycle of fear, right? All over again. So today I'll share with you how to heal from trauma by following the steps I have taken in my journey and also I help clients be seen, be heard, and be limitless. So as I said, I was on the floor and I was also feeling my feelings. I was also acknowledging where I was with everything. And as Andra had pointed out, that the stress can overwhelm us to the point where we could just pretty much pass out because you may have passed out in whatever you have experienced in your life because we put so much burden on ourselves for responsibilities of life. And so I felt the feelings. I walked myself through and I embraced the uncomfortable. That was the first thing that I did was I felt the feelings and I sat with them. And what I did was I put myself in a meditative state because they were so overwhelming. And in that process, I was going from a very like low, terrified vibration and just lifting my vibration up. And I was offering myself the security that I needed. I wasn't looking anywhere else. I wasn't blaming anybody else. I was just in the moment, like what we have all talked about, just being present, being in the moment. The second thing that I did was I told a friend. I had been so ashamed of my situation and everything that I went through that I kept everything to myself. I bottled it all up. And I'm actually surprised that I didn't have any type of autoimmune disease or anything else. It just, I think I really had God's protection on that. But I told my friend because she had been poking and prodding me for years. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. And I didn't want to tell her. So I was so embarrassed. And how do you tell someone? Because nothing's normal. So I was angry at myself for getting in the situation. I was angry at him for causing all of this, fear, anxiety, and everything else. And as I said, I didn't grow up this way, so this was all new for me. I was embarrassed and I was humiliated, but I told her anyway. And I told her when she had said, "Well, what happened that day?" Well, actually, what happened that day and one of the reasons why I didn't run was because she was on a camping trip. This was my bestie at the time. She was on a camping trip and I had no one else to tell. And I didn't want to call the police because guess who would be bailing him out? Me. I had been supporting him for 15 out of the 20 years financially, emotionally, spiritually, everything else. And so I was just so humiliated by telling her what happened. Because how in the world did you get to this point where you have no clue what to do? And so I did. I told her. And the third thing that I did was because I told her, and the reason why I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't think anybody could help me. So the reason why I told her was because I didn't have a choice. I chose my heart, Carrie. I chose my heart. That was the hardest thing I feel for, even all of us and share, even for all of us sharing our story in the chapter was hard, really hard, because it's our breakdown to the breakthrough moment. It's making our mess our message. And that's why we're here today, to help you stay aligned. So what happened was, yeah, she did help me. We involved her husband and we brainstormed for a plan. Granted, I was terrified. I didn't know. It was stepping into the unknown. What Sherry was saying, or somebody, I think it was Sherry, was saying, you just need to take that step. And I did. And I learned also how to ask for help as well. So we brainstormed a plan. And I'm the type of person like I need to know like every single detail. But as you all know, sometimes you don't have every single detail. Sometimes you just need to know what your next step is. So we brainstormed a plan and I was like, I need a plan. I need a plan. And so her husband said, that is the plan. The plan was to get my things out of the house, the important things, get my important documents, get my clothes, like the extra key to the car, etc. All of these things, all of these details, it was a plan. As I said, I'm not leaving without a plan. So as I said, that was the third step. So going through everything again, being seen, see yourself, honor yourself, love yourself. Don't blame, shame, judge anyone else, nor yourself. So that's what I was saying the other day was to know yourself, you need to love yourself. You need to really figure out who you are. So you need to know yourself, right? You need to see yourself. And I love that Dr. Vani had mentioned earlier, if you all didn't hear, is honest journal writing. Because we edit ourselves for whatever we're telling the world. We edit, and how much we want to tell. But when you're honest with yourself, that's really when you start feeling into what the solutions are. So that's what I always say, to trust your intuition and feel your feelings. We're told to just be quiet or not to act up or to shut up, right? I mean, so many times we're silenced and then we start silencing ourselves. So we need to be seen. We need to become aware. We need to wake up. We need to snap out of denial. So all of those limiting beliefs, ask yourself, is that really true? Like what CJ has said, is it really true? You need to ask yourself, snap out of that denial. All of our limiting beliefs, we're the only ones, we're the only person that holds ourselves back from playing big. And stop with the victim mentality. So CJ had mentioned about the victim mentality, and excuse the language, but own your shit. And if it's not your shit, you don't need to worry about that because that's somebody else's journey. So you need to own your own stuff. And I know a lot of people who are in victim and mentality, they're like, yeah, but it was so and so and it was so and so. And it's like, actually, it's a great way that we could look into ourselves, because if we are triggered with something, it is our own stuff. And so for that person to bring out that trigger, it is a way for us to look deeper inside. So own your stuff. You don't need to own anyone else's stuff. And the thing that I learned was not my circus, not my monkey. So that's what I actually, it's so funny, Sherry, because you work with children, how I got out of all of that yelling and screaming and all of that, or people have mentioned like um, the energy vampires that I've heard people say that. And I said, you know what? You know what I did? I did what I learned as a child. I'm rubber and you're glue. And whatever you say bounces off me and sticks back to you. Yeah. Yep. And also, I've also learned a way for us not to give over our power is to really just return back to sender. And you could do that with love. You can return back to sender. So I've learned how to, as CJ brought up, just become from a victim to victor, and in that process become a survivor into a thriver. And so I did that with very, very simple techniques. With that, not my circus, not my monkey, and I'm rubber, you're glue, and just returning back that energy, whatever energy people are throwing on you, return that with love because they need that. As what CJ had mentioned, hurt people hurt people. And I always say healed people heal people. My mentor had talked about talking from a scar or or talking from a scab or a scar. And I just love this beautiful collaboration that we're having today because I realize, now the support and the love that we want to love on you. We want to love and help you because we're coming from a scar, but we're always working through our stuff. And for you who are empaths, you feel for others and everything, but just know that it's your journey. It's not, and they have their journey just as you have your journey. So even though you don't need to. If it's not your stuff, it's not your stuff. But if people come to you and they ask you for help, that's what we're here for. So the second thing, be heard. So people sometimes get seen and heard, right? It's like, oh, I get that. So, but heard, no, do you really? Do you really know how to express yourself? Do you know how to express yourself from your heart? We sometimes express ourselves from here, right? From our mind and what we're thinking and overthinking and thinking about being judged and all of that. But are you really expressing yourself? So what happened for me was that I made a shift from all of that judgment, all of that humiliation and being ashamed and getting paralyzed, all of that. Where that happens is being heard is hearing yourself, listening to yourself, and forgiving. That's huge. Forgiving and letting go. And I could tell you in this past year, that was huge for me because I actually thought I worked so hard through myself, but I felt like there was this Bella who was just distraught and angry and sad and just like almost like crying in the corner. And I said, I felt so bad. Like I just put this guilt on myself, like I needed to save her. So I actually went out to get a therapist. It was a cognitive behavioral therapist that's helped me in the past. But you do you and what helps you. And so she reminded me she'd been through something very similar. And she reminded me, she said, you need to understand you were under mind control. And so I go, oh my gosh, I was. And even in this process of sharing my story in the book, and I also, edited, right? How much I shared, because there's so much more to what we're sharing even today. We just sharing like a little piece for you all to feel in alignment. But what happened was I went on a road trip just in the past week and I shared my full story, the unedited version. It was coming from a scar now. And it felt so beautiful because I was doing it in a way of empowerment. So that's one of the way that I was able to bridge and break the pattern was I was able to come from empowerment and forgive and release all of the stuff from the past because that's really made me stronger. And as you know, scar tissue, or if you break a bone, it's even stronger than it was before, right? So that's really important that we hear ourselves. And when you hear yourself, you're feeling the feelings. You're going through the emotions, but just know that you are not your circumstances and you are not your feelings either. But it's important to feel your feelings because unprocessed feelings are going to come out in different ways and in different ways that we don't expect. Most of the time, when we are thinking or wanting somebody to save us, we don't realize how we have the solution from within. So I basically work as a guide for you to come into your own solutions because you are your you know yourself best. You know all your bullshit that you tell yourself, right? You know all the stuff. You know all the things you desire and you love and you want. And you also know the things that hold you back. You know everything. So you know the solutions to that. So it's important that we reparent the inner child. And so rather than waiting for a hero, you become your own hero or heroine. And so that is part of being heard. So it's very easy to go, oh, yeah, I'm out there, I'm being seen, I'm being heard. It's really easy to say that, but are you really? And are you really expressing from your heart, from your soul? Are you really, listening to yourself? This is important. And so that is so it's like own your shit is the first and shed your shit. Shed it. Shed it. Let it go. All the things that aren't serving you, let it go. And what I do now when I get ants, which is automatic negative thinking, I turn it around. And I hope there's no Karens here, but even if there's Karen, it's not, no offense, but we use this for my client. And if Karen comes in, I said, we're not playing today. But if Karen comes in, she starts giving us negative thoughts. Well, I question it. I don't fight it. I question it. I'm like, well, why can't I do it? Go, other people are doing, why can't I do it? Why can't I do it in my own way? And I believe it was Sherry, it said, do it unapologetically. You become this person who you are designed to be. Stepping into that power is looking into your potential. So why not? Why can't you do it? And I'm like, well, you know what? If it's not my expertise, I hire somebody, right? Because I don't need to know everything. So that's a pressure that we put on ourselves that we need to know everything we don't. And so we are our own, that's what I was getting at, subject matter experts. And so know yourself, love yourself, trust yourself, and build up that strength to ask yourself when you have those self-limiting beliefs come in, or that Karen, or those negative thoughts, question it. Why can't I? I don't know anything about it, but I can learn. Question it, because then you are going to learn how to trust yourself. And when you actually do it, you're going to be proud of yourself. Like what Sherry said, go ahead and add in your celebration. Celebrate yourself, even for the littlest thing. Andra, I had a lot of gut issues, you can imagine, with all that stress over the decades. And for a good poop, I was like, you go, girl. I would give myself a high five because it was almost being like, retraining myself like a 2-year-old if you have kids, right? Or well, maybe not two, but like earlier or whatever they're potty training. It's like I celebrated a good poop. Okay. I'm just saying. It's like normal thing, right? Sometimes we don't want to talk about taboo things. But yeah, I know celebrate that shit, literally. So, okay, so now it comes into being limitless. Because everyone's like, oh, yeah, I understand being heard, being seen, being heard. It's like, but what about the limitless? So, this is what I'm here to share with you. This is how you empower yourself. So, one of the things that I do and I did, and what I, teach others is like, oh my gosh, we are so incredible as women, and we have such a capacity. And we have such a way of being nurturing and helping others, or giving solutions or offering help and everything else. But you need to know that you don't need to do that for everybody. I mean, your kids, they're reliant on you, but otherwise you well, in Sherry's case, she has many kids, but you need to know that you are uniquely you, and you need to take care of yourself first. You've always heard of that example of the being on the plane and the oxygen mask comes down. Who do you help first? We want to help all of our kids, but we need to help ourselves first. If we're not around, if we're not healthy, if we're not cognizant, we don't know, like if we're not clear in our mind, then we're not able to be there for other people. And so you've heard about filling your own cup. Well, we're coming actually from the saucer, the cup and the saucer. We're coming from the saucer, ladies, because we're coming from an overflow when you are empowering yourself. So that means more than self-care, which is just, some people like, oh, take a bath or, have like do my nails or something. No, this is a lot more than that. And for some of us, most of us, it's our life, right? So we need to empower ourselves. That's part of the reparenting the inner child. We need to be there for ourselves. We need to give ourselves the safety and security, and don't feel afraid of asking for help. That does not mean weakness. That just means that you're actually allowing abundance to come in. People want to love on us. People want to support us, but we need to be clear on what we're asking for and how we can be supported. So we need to share that with people. Share with people how we like to be communicated with. Share people what you're feeling. Those things are super important, right? And also, I heard someone say, well, it's painful or it's hard. Well, it's like, well, like what Sherry said, choose your heart, right? Because it's harder for me to be in that codependency, thinking that, somebody's going to change and I'm the one that's getting hurt. I'm the one that's keeping myself silent. I'm the one that's getting hurt. I'm the one that's feeling guilty, not letting things go. I'm the one that's getting hurt. I'm the one that's saying yes to everybody else and no to me. I'm the one that's getting hurt. So we need to be able to take a step back and really feel how we can help that inner child. Because the inner child is screaming out at us. The inner child is not being seen. The inner child's not being heard. So this is how we become limitless. Because as Sherry, everybody was saying to me, you're like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. I'm like, I'm scared to death. Like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know who I am. I don't know what kind of life I'm going to have. However, I minimized my life. So I think what happens is that people complicate their life and then they feel stupid because they can't remember anything. They're late for stuff. They think they're crazy. People don't trust them because they don't even trust themselves. And so what I did was I minimized. I minimized. So like I wasn't even on social media. Like I minimized my whole life and I just focused on me. That's how I empowered myself. So if you could just imagine, it's like having windows, like on the computer or on your phone. You have too many friggin' windows open. It's like, oh my gosh, like I keep windows open because I got FOMO, right? So I keep windows open because I'm gonna come back to it. I got interrupted or I have to work. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna come back to that, so and so, this and that and stuff. And pretty soon it's like I have a million windows open. Not only do I have windows open, I have tabs open. It's like we do that to ourselves though. Not anybody else's fault. It's not that, like somebody's making you do something or you're pressuring yourself. So just taking a step back, closing those windows, creating a system that you're not going to feel overwhelmed, go at your pace and finding what works for you. So that's what I help my clients through, is finding what works for them and helping them find their solutions and finding what works, because I don't believe in like cookie cutter stuff. I don't, because we're all unique. We're all beautiful in our own unique way. And we also have joy in all different ways. You heard from today, like what brings us joy. It's all different because we are so beautifully, uniquely different. So that's why I stopped comparing myself with other people. And I also stopped worrying about what people think, because if people love me, great. If they don't love me, that's okay. Doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, they're a bad person, or anything else like that. We happen to vilify people if, they're not for us. And we, like say they're toxic and all this stuff. But I love what CJ said, just, to really embrace like the people that come into our lives and learn from them. We could always learn something from those people. And when we take that educational piece from Sherry, it's like everything is a lesson. And so that's really how I empowered myself. And I encourage you to do the same. That's how we can become limitless, is to not think about the pain level. Because if we think about the pain level, we're not going to do it. We're going to stay in our own comfort level, our own comfort zone. We're not going to do it. We're going to get paralyzed. Even thinking about the pain, right? We're going to get paralyzed. But it's the priorities. It's the priorities and learning your pace. Some things, it probably seems like I'm hesitant or I take a long time to do. And there's freaking times I'm, like I zip through things. And I learned my personality through Enneagram and through human design, which I went over Tina's human design last night. And when we learn to live as us and how we are designed and our friggin' superpowers, and when we're living our not self, which mine would be bitterness, Tina's would be frustration. There's also others, I think probably possibly anger, etc. We're not living ourself. And you know what? That's a good indication for us to like snap back into what we're good at. Because I think that's what happens is like, oh yeah, I'm being seen, I'm being heard. It's like, what's that secret for the limitlessness is to be able to make that snap back. So instead of thinking about all of your fears or all of the things that you feel that you're weak at or you're not good at or you don't know, start thinking the opposite. I'm like the queen of reframing, right? It's like, well, Bella, blah, 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 blah. And I just asked the question. Well, if you knew, what would it be? Or what sets your soul on fire? Let's not focus on this stuff. Not to say it's not important, but why don't we start focusing on other things? So just redirecting your own brain, because we're always going to the negative stuff. We're always going to the things that don't serve us. But I'm like, freaking, what if we looked at our strengths? I'm like, we could rule the world. You heard that girls rule the world, right? We could rule the world. We're so powerful. And if we started working from our strengths and playing big at our own pace, at our own readiness, at our own willingness, in our own way, and be able to, create that world in that way, that's how we can become limitless. So we could rediscover or discover our identity. Because as I said, I was terrified every single day. But every single day I learned my identity and who I really was. And Abraham Hicks always talks about just go with what you love, go with your desire. That's how the power of it, the law of attraction happens. That's how manifestation happens. And if you were to ask me even 7 years ago is when I left, if you were to
Ella,
ask me 7 years
honey,
ago,
I promised you I was gonna rein you in,
yeah,
because, yeah, we're way above time, honey. Your story
okay,
is so important and they can connect to you. Okay, so let them know how they can do that because we've gone way over time,
got it.
okay?
Okay, thank you. I'll wrap it up. Okay, so so look Instead of the things that you can't control, look at the things you can control and embrace your journey. So this is the part of be seen, be heard, and that is to be limitless, which is to be the shit. Be the shit, girl. You can be it, and this is how you do it. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and I